Okay. All right. Good morning. We'll give everybody a couple of seconds to get seated and then we'll get started. We ready, Travis?
Hit your green button on your microphone.
Testing. Got one over here.
Oh, I believe it should be sharing, not hearing it. Hello? Theo? No. Hello? No. Reshare. Quick.
All right. Give us a couple moments while we work through some of our technical issues in the room.
Okay, sure.
We ready?
Yes. All right. There's a delay probably.
Okay. All right. Great. Good morning and welcome to the CRTPO TCC November 7th, 2024 committee meeting. The time is now 10:03. And as a reminder, we're in a different room today. And so please make sure that you notice the microphones in front of you. You'll have to turn those on and off. They have a red and green button, just like we're used to. So whenever you speak, make sure your microphone is on. We'll go around the room and do introductions, starting to my left with Richard.
Good morning, Rich Hoffman, Iredell County.
Morning, Diane Thomas, Public Health Focus Area.
Justin Russell, Town of Stallings.
Matt Kirkendall, City of Statesville. I'm in County Code and City of Division 12.
James Kelly, Town of Blacksville.
Town of Mooresville.
Vaughn Hanson, Village West Chapel.
Sean Epperson, NCDOT, Division 10.
Andrew Ventresca, Town of Troutman.
Travis Johnson, CRTPO.
Liz Babson, City of Charlotte.
Vicky Brooks, Town of Mineral Springs.
Andrew Golden, Town of Davidson. Bjorn Hanson, Union County.
Brian Horton, Cat CMTC Rep.
Megan Green, Cumberland County Air Quality.
Lisa Stywinner, City of Monroe.
Dana Stujenki, Town of Matthews.
Steve Fry, Town of Mint Hill.
Candace Rory, Charlotte Planning.
Tim Popelka, McAdams.
Justin Carroll, Charlotte DOT.
Blair Israel, Town of Waxhaw.
Mike Castillo, NCDOT Transportation Planning Division.
Alex Runberry, NCDOT Integrated Mobility Division.
Dan Lever, Charlotte General Services.
Travis Morgan, Town of Pineville.
Jennifer Stafford, CRTPO, and my mom's visiting today.
Joanna Quinn, Charlotte Department of Transportation.
Bob Cook, CRTPO. Bryson Hester, City of Monroe.
Martin Ketteman, CDOT.
Aaron Pratt, CDOT.
Lauren Cooksey, Turnpike Authority.
Neil Berg, CRTPO.
Andrew Babb, Bolton and Mank. John Cock, Bolton and Mank. Robert Allen, Pond and Company.
Thank you. And again, welcome everyone. On the screen, we have today's agenda. May I have a motion for the adoption of today's agenda? And a second. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Moving on to our next item, we have a consent agenda that's pretty full today. May I have a motion for the approval of the October 3rd, 2024 TCC minutes, the 2024-2033 TIP amendments, the 2025 TCC meeting dates, the transfer of planning responsibilities, memorandum of agreement with RFATs, and the CRTPO adjusted urban area boundary. May I have a motion for that? May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that also carries unanimously. Moving on, we have 3 items of business. We're going to hear from Travis on the 2026-2035 TIP development process, or as some of us know it, NCDOT prioritization 7.0. It's booby trapped.
An extra chair. but-
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Great. So we'll rewind for a second. So again, we're asking for a recommendation that the CRTPO board endorse the draft list of division needs projects proposed in local input point assignment for NCD DOT prioritization 7.0 or P 7.0. Let's give you a brief review of the division needs, talk about the public comment summary, and then identify the next steps for this item. So the P 7.0 division needs local input assignment began on September 23rd, and it's going to end on November 29th. That's when we have to have all the local input points inserted into the Spot online database. And this will be the final step before the release of the draft STIP and TIP in January of 2025. For the division needs projects for P 7.0, as of 9/18, for Division 10, we have negative $201 million. And for Division 12, we have negative $128 million. The P 7.0 subcommittee met on August 28th. They allocated local input points to division needs projects, which was a total of 2,500 local input points. And they followed the CRTPO methodology for point allocation. For highway projects, this resulted in 1,900 points going to highway projects in Division 10 and 100 points going to a project in Division 12. We did not recommend assignment of local input points to the unfunded regional impact projects, and this is to align with Division 10 and Division 12's point assignment. We also received a request to Cabarrus Rowan MPO donated to us 35 local input points to apply to Popular Tent Road. The reason why they provided 30 or were asked to provide 35 points to us is because the road is 35% in our MPO planning area. So that would be the maximum number of points we could apply to that project. So if approved, we would also then use those donated points in addition to our 2,500 for that one individual project. We did deviate from the methodology for two projects. First project that would have received local input points on our P 7.0 list was the East-West Connector. This project was skipped for local input points because it had previously received discretionary funds during the fall 2023 fall call. So it no longer needed funding for that project. Additionally, we recommended the skipping of the Monroe Northern Loop project, and that's because we wanted to assign points to Old Mountain Road to create a geographic equity to ensure that each division had at least one project. Public comment period. We had a public comment period from October 17th to October 31st, and we received 63 public comments in total. We received them on the projects on the screen, which is Sunnyway Greenway, Waxhaw Parkway, Ottawa Road, Mallard Creek Road, Helms Road, and then ICAT's multimodal transportation facility. These comments are also included in your agenda packet, and these will also be shared with the board. Again, as part of our methodology, the CRTPO board is allowed to adjust local input point assignment based upon public feedback. So again, most of the projects did receive support. There was a lot of conversation about the Waxhaw Parkway. But again, that information will be shared with the board, and that will allow them to make that decision at their meeting. So we did the public comment period from October 17th to the 31st. We're here today to ask for a recommendation, and then we would get hoping for the board approval on November 20th. And then we'll have till November 29th to input our local input score to meet the deadline of the spot office to then have the draft spot list released on time in January of 2025. So again, with that, the action requested is to endorse the draft list of division needs projects proposed for local input points for P7. I can pause and ask any or answer any questions.
Any questions for anybody? Okay, if not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend that the CRTPO board the draft list of division needs project proposed for local input points under the MPDOT prioritization center.
I'll second that. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Anybody opposed?
Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
All right, for the room, we brought some additional chairs. They're up over to my right behind Bob. If some of the voting members want to grab a couple of chairs, we can line you guys up on the inside of the table. If y'all are okay with that, and I'll give a couple of minutes for people to get resituated. Don't all jump at once. Come on, Candace, lead the way. I know, I know. Oh, come on, come on. Alex, Roger, come on and join us at the table. Thanks, guys. We just want you to have special seats since you travel so far. All right, awesome. Thank you for giving us a couple minutes just to get everybody situated. Travis, you're up next.
Thank you. Up next, to talk about our complete streets policy. The action being asked today is to recommend that CRTPO board adopt the draft complete streets policy. Just go a brief background on the policy, talk about updates to the policy, and then identify next steps. So as we know, a complete streets policy is a process and approach to street design. There's a lot of elements that can go into it, and it's not just one solution for a region. North Carolina Department of Transportation has adopted a complete streets policy, or adopted their latest version of their complete streets policy in 2019. In early 2024, the CRTPO started research on creating its own complete streets policy and started their work with interviewing of other similar organizations throughout the country. For the draft policy, it's been included in the agenda. It originally was shared with the Bicycle Pedestrian Work Group at a transportation staff meeting, Smart Growth America, TCC, and the CRTPO board, and there was a public comment period from October 17th till October 31st. During the public comment period, we received 2 comments. These are just snippets of those comments. In general, they were both supportive of the policy. One just stating complete street policy is a must approve, and then the overall draft complete streets policy is a step in the right direction. Both those comments, complete comments, can be made available per your request. There were some additional policy updates made since the public comment period. These changes were made to improve policy clarity and to address feedback we received from Smart Growth America. There was some confusion, I think, on some of the elements that were not implicitly stated in the policy that would have been implied. So we added some extra language into there to clean that up. So we added first clarification for public involvement. So we added additional language about projects should include equity, environmental justice, and transportation disadvantaged and vulnerable user populations when considering project locations and prioritization. And then we also incorporate just language about project sponsors shall incorporate an inclusive public engagement process and just stipulate that it has to meet the standards of the CRTPO public involvement plan, both of which would have, the public involvement plan expectation would have been implied, but we clarified it by putting it in the document. We also added some potential performance measures, which we are going to work on. So we're going to start collecting as we approve projects by year, what projects are complete streets, what does that mean for miles approved for complete streets, miles for bicycle and pedestrian facilities, looking at location of projects awarded. This is not an exhaustive list, and we plan to add to this, which is why, again, this is potential performance measures, but we'd like to, once this policy is implemented, track performance measures so that we can tweak the policy or know how to tweak the policy and make updates to ensure that we are getting the outcomes we would like to see as a region. We also had steps to encouragement, stipulating that the CRTPO may assist with public involvement and education. So those two steps were under the encouragement section. So we feel like all three of those updates added additional clarity to the document and clarified the roles. In addition to that, we added just a general language about who would be checking this and clarified that it would be either the director of the CRTPO or their designee, so that information, we'd know who was keeping track of the policy. So in this complete streets policy is supposed to complement local complete streets policies and jurisdictional complete streets policies. We still hope that you will be adopting your own policies. This is also seen to support NCDOT's complete streets efforts and identifying complete streets earlier in our process by making it something at the start of an application. And this is currently not affected or expected to affect project scoring. Just when you submit a project, we'll be reviewing it for these complete streets elements. So we step one, step two, we've completed, which was review the draft policy, public comment period, and now we're in November, we're coming back for a recommendation to the board and hopeful for adoption in November. So with that, the action requested is to recommend that the CRTPO board adopt the draft complete streets policy. And any questions?
Any questions for Travis?
You said it's not in the scoring? Is that what I heard?
Correct. As of right now, there is not a scoring ranking to it.
Okay. My only worry there was sometimes it's not a one size fits all policy. And I would just hope that the multiple flavors of jurisdictions we have in here have the latitude to adjust and tweak and it not be a black and white.
Correct. And that's, we received a lot of feedback from Smart Growth America. There was a lot of conversations about using words like should or shall. We understand that we have a variety of communities in our region and we did not want to make it restrictive. So there is a lot of softer language in there because we are trying to accommodate the needs of many different jurisdictions and what they're seeing. That does not mean we're not going to direct you to best practices and have feedback to support for more maybe complete answers, but we are understanding that there's a lot of issues. We have an extensive list of exceptions to the ruling. And again, this would just, as of right now, it does not affect a point score. It's just, it meets or it does not.
The exemption directed, approved by the director, is that something, if you read the exemptions,
yeah,
can you assume that you're exempt or do you still have to make it?
You would still have to make a request. Yeah. And so we would, again, tie this to all the application process. When you're applying for highway projects with us, they would be reviewed per this policy, and then this policy would be reviewed every time the MTP is updated. So this is anticipated to be a policy that we update and keep to match with what we'd like to see as a region, is what we agree as a region.
May I have a motion to recommend that the CRTPO board adopt the draft complete streets policy? May I have a second? Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you, Travis. Did you get it?
Mm-hmm. And no opposed? Sure. Thank you very much.
All right, next we're going to have James come up and give us a presentation and an update on the Waxhaw Parkway CTP amendment.
All right, good morning.
Everyone. I am James Kelly. I am the traffic and transportation engineer with the town of Waxhaw. Today we're talking about the Waxhaw Parkway Comprehensive CTP amendment. And the action requested today is to recommend that the CRTPO board approve the proposed CTP amendments for the northeast and southeast quadrants of the Waxhaw Parkway. So a lot of this information you have already heard before, and this is the same information from the last TCC meeting. So I'm going to start by framing this conversation. This will be a tough conversation, a tough item to navigate and to discuss. So Waxhaw is seeking engaged conversation from all members on this amendment item to move toward a productive approach and ultimately moving to a vote on this item and concluding the CTP procedural amendment process. Items that we know that are important to you and items that we want to focus in on throughout today's discussion is number one, the outcome of the Mineral Springs, Union County, and Waxhaw meeting on October the 11th, as well as talking about community engagement. And we want to note that oftentimes there is opposition in these types of cases, and this is normal and is to be expected in these types of items. And while we may not come to a unanimous decision today, by the end of this tough conversation, you will all be more certain of your technical recommendation. And as transportation professionals in these tough cases with opposition, we must make logical decisions rather than decisions based on emotion. Now that the conversation is framed, let's talk about the Union County, Mineral Springs, and Waxhaw outcomes from the October 11th meeting that the three municipalities had. First thing I'm going to start off by saying is I don't have good news. I actually have bad news. It is clear that through our conversations with the other jurisdictions of Town of Mineral Springs and Union County, that they intend to remove the Waxhaw Parkway from the CTP and from regional planning. And this has been clear for quite some time now. And while those jurisdictions were very generous with their time, removal just does not work for us. And here's why. The data from the NCDOT feasibility report, as well as from the origin destination study, show that without the project, this will result in failing infrastructure levels of service along the NC-16 corridor. And by not having this infrastructure, this could cause a hindrance to public health and safety, a hindrance to economic development opportunities that could support commercial growth and the travel and tourism industry, and hindrance to supporting regional mobility from a local and regional traffic demand perspective. Our goal, Waxhaw's goal, is to continue project progression and plan for these traffic demands. So now let's move into community engagement. So we've had several opportunities for the community to engage on this process throughout the past, going on 2 years now. The first was Union County initiated through the original CTP amendment process, and majority public support was achieved for the project. The second was conducted by Waxhaw through our 2024 Master Transportation Plan update. And this project ranked as our #1 project from a community perspective, a local input perspective, as well as from a weighted score perspective. Additionally, there was outcomes from the 2055 MTP Public Engagement Phase 1, which showed overwhelming support for the Parkway project. And even today, through the P7.0 local input point opportunity for public engagement, there is continued public support for the project. And the draft points show that the 100 points will be awarded from CARPO and 100 points will be awarded from NCDOT. Now, I realize that this is a tough process, and Waxhaw intends to persevere in face of this opposition because we want to ensure that we are being open about our communication and transparent throughout this entire process. This project is not only important, it is a necessity that has been in previous CARPO submittals, and now after 30 years, over 30 years of being on the CTP,
it is becoming competitive to receive project programming continuation. We realize that this is a tough conversation and a tough decision, and the logical decision is to support the amendment as it promotes minimization of harm from a human, physical, and environmental perspective. Your decision as TCC members is a part of the CTP procedural amendment process. And let's work together to elevate this conversation to move in support of the CTP amendment for the northeast and southeast quadrants of the Waxhaw Parkway. So we have the same information from last time. More than happy to dive into all of that information, from the why to some recent history over the past 7 years, the feasibility report, the ODs report, public engagement, outcomes, the alignments, amendments themselves, and less impacts. So more than happy to go over that information with you. Before we get there, though, I would like to go back to the chair and open this for conversation, and just simply ask, what all would you like to discuss?
Get it on your next slide. Can you go to your next slide and just make sure that it's clear what you're asking?
Sure. Yep, and the action requested today is to recommend that the CRTPO board approve the proposed CTP amendments for the northeast and southeast quadrants of the Waxhaw Parkway.
So what I need in order for the TCC to have a discussion is I need a motion and a second, and then we'll put it on the floor and have a discussion about the action requested.
Maybe the easiest if everybody just turn their microphones.
My mic on, I'm sorry, and I didn't have my mic on that.
Because it's hard to remember that.
Yes.
Turn them all on.
So does anybody have any questions about process?
General questions can happen before the motion has to be in the debate.
Yeah. So just to clarify, you can, if you have general questions for James or about the process, feel free to ask those now. If not, and we want to get into the discussion about the action requested of the TCC, then I need a motion to move in that direction. So I'm going to pause for just a second. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, seeing that there's no questions, I motion to recommend that the CRTPO board approve the proposed CTP amendments for the northeast and southeast quadrants of the Waxhaw Parkway.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right. Now we can open it up for discussion on the action requested for the TCC. Go ahead, Brian.
Given what we just voted on for the MTP, or no, I'm sorry, Spot 7.0 as for this project, can you talk about how those align, or what are the segments that were in the P 7.0? And I know or understand division needs doesn't have any funding, so might not, any project might not emerge from this prioritization.
I just want to clarify, there are two separate processes. We approved local input points on the current alignment. The request here is to move that alignment.
Right. That's why I know they're separate. That's why I'm asking, though, given that we moved that forward, albeit in a round of prioritization where there's not funding likely available for the project, how does that, what was the scope of each, or we know the scope of this one, northeast and southeast quadrants. Can you remind us what the scope or the limits were for the one that was in the P 7.0? So.
Sure. So that's a great question. And it seems like you have a really good reason for asking that question. Could I ask what makes you ask?
Well, I'm just wondering about how we reconcile those two votes today from a technical perspective, even though it seems like for P 7.0, there's not funding available. So, but
yeah. Also, just to clarify, we recommended that the board add local input points.
Correct.
We have not added local input points.
Right. We're not the final decision makers. Yes.
That's right. So it sounds like your question is, number one, what's the actual line, number one? And then number two, what's the justification? That's what it sounds like. The justification is this really shows continued public support for the project. And the line itself, as far as P 7.0 in particular, would have been this eastern piece of the parkway. So as far as the line itself, it would be a similar type of line. And really the whole point of continuing this process is that Waxhaw sees value in being, number one, open about our transparency, because this process will ultimately take several years to complete. So we want to make sure that we are very open from the very beginning of this process to show that there is continued public support for the project.
James, I think I might have misheard you, but did you say that it was your understanding that Union County and Mineral Springs were wanting to remove Waxhaw Parkway completely from the CTP? And if so, we get a comment or response from either or both of those jurisdictions on that?
I will let the jurisdictions speak for themselves. From the documents that we have received, it is clear that their intent is to remove.
On behalf of Union County, can't speak for Leakey and Mineral Springs, but the current situation, either in the orange or the purple lime alignments, facilitates access to the south of NC 75 through Waxhaw into southern Union County. And so that scenario is what they oppose. There was a healthy amount of discussion and acknowledgement of the trade-offs when we met in October. And one of the scenarios that was proposed actually had the alignment from the north closer into town, where it actually couldn't continue to the south, which was seen as preferable in a big picture perspective, because it would limit that facilitation of development to the southeast part of the area in the map. So that's the perspective. Whether we have some sort of initiative to propose removing it, I mean, I think that's more of a preference. I think we recognize that that's a big lift. So it's not in the cards of actively being advanced at this time, at least by Union County.
Or Mineral Springs at this time.
Follow up to that, not specifically related to the response that Bjorn and Vicky gave, but inherently this is some feasibility studies have been performed on this and determined that connecting 16 to 75 in some form or another from the north to the east would be a good way to relieve traffic congestion in downtown Waxhaw. Inherently, when it goes into, assume it gets funded at some point, goes into design, there will be some additional engineering work that goes into it, determining the actual location, perhaps beyond this. We know that the 16 and 75 are the 2 points that it's connecting. And just wondering out loud, whether those things can be resolved at that point, where there's more specificity.
Could you add a little bit more to that? Just looking for a question.
The question is essentially, won't this be moving around to some extent anyway, as it's being actually designed if it gets funded?
That's correct. So it sounds like your question is, could this be moved throughout the process? And the short answer is yes. We're at the CTP stage. The CTP stage is a planning conceptual level stage. Obviously, as far as project programming, you would have to progress through the MTP and ultimately the TIP, and that project and the line can shift a little based upon the NEPA, SEPA environmental documents that result as well. So yes, that short answer to your question is yes. Longer answer is we see this as the most optimal route. Waxhaw has already explored well over 20 alternatives, looking at this particular area and looking at other areas throughout the town as well. And it's clear to us through our analysis that this is the most optimal route.
So I can add on to that. So from a Division 10 standpoint, we feel the Waxhaw bypass, at least the northeast segment, is a benefit. We see issues with the NC 16, NC 75 intersection, being able to get traffic through that intersection without significant widening, without creating a grade separation across those tracks, and what that would do to the area. The proposed CTP alignment is a shorter alignment, provides for less impacts to the human and natural environment. However, we recognize that the NEPA SEPA process which is what was just brought up, would actually define that alignment. And so if this project was funded in the future, the actual alignment, no matter what the CTP shows, could be vastly different. We could adjust the CTP this month at the TAC and the NEPA CEPA process, push it back to the orange. We could not adjust it in the NEPA CEPA process, push it back to the purple, or somewhere in between, or somewhere like Bjorn mentioned, closer into town. But from the DOT standpoint, we do think that the proposed CTP amendment is a better alternative than the current CTP alignment, simply because it reduces the impacts to the human and natural environment while balancing costs of the project.
Can you go to the zoomed in map that you had?
This one here?
This one here, yeah. So the purple alignment is what's being requested, correct?
That is, it's a combination, correct. It's a combination of the purple and green alignment. And one of the key components of that alignment, of the purple alignment in particular, is, and I don't have a laser pointer with me, but the segment there right below the number 3 in purple. There you go. Thank you, Travis. That area there is actually completely owned by Town of Waxhaw. We own those parcels. So it's beneficial for us and to the adjacent property owners to go ahead and move this so that there's less impacts from that human, especially human perspective there.
So basically, it looks from this map that the impacts to the amount of properties is much less with the requested alignment.
That is correct.
James, on that alignment, or either one of the alignments, have you actually studied what kind of housing you're going to destroy by either one of the alignments?
So right now, that's a great question. Could you elaborate on that, and what makes you ask that question? I'm just curious.
Well, I know that the purple, at one point, these people were told the alignment was not going to change, so they began building on those lots. If I'm not mistaken, on the orange line, you're not destroying as many homes. Yes, properties you're messing with, but the homes themselves.
Yes, that's a great question. So in particular, the orange line, the existing line today would directly hit one house in particular. And then of course, would also impact several other landowners, property owners, some of that natural environment, as well as the physical environment from a equestrian standpoint, as well as from other land and agricultural standpoints. The purple alignment, in particular, you're looking at parcel number 2 is what I would guess. Parcels numbers 1 and 3 in purple actually do not have any homes on them today. So that would be less impacts there. Now, parcel 2 does have a home on it, and we definitely could work around that with additional study, assuming that the project progresses.
James, we also heard from several speakers at the last board meeting where this topic came up for discussion. Can you clarify for me who were those folks? Where did they live? What concern? I'm trying to understand what their concerns are as it relates to these alignments.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing is that you're concerned about where those property owners live in particular.
Yes.
So in particular, the people that spoke at the last CRTPO informational session on September 18th, they all live along the existing alignment today, that orange alignment. So every single one of them that spoke is along that existing alignment.
Thank you. Yeah, it wasn't clear to me. They talked about the concern about the impact from the corridor in the future. But it seemed as if they were along the existing alignment.
And that could just be due to some confusion. They don't know which line is which, and they're just seeing a line that's over their property. So I definitely can understand their confusion there.
Yep, thank you. All right, go ahead.
I apologize if you answered this. I don't know that I have a clear answer of why you guys oppose changing it.
Well, at this point, it's not about opposing changing it. It's about the concept of it as it currently exists that goes from north of Waxhaw to south of Waxhaw. And that south of Waxhaw dynamic and all the development that it can open up is big concern to the county.
So the county is trying to prevent the development by the initial design?
By either design, by having that leg go to the south, the concern is that it's going to greatly facilitate development in that part of the county.
Either alignment.
That's right.
You go back to the map.
This one here, that one there, okay. So it sounds like, Bjorn, the county is in opposition based upon development. That's what I'm hearing.
Among others, I can't speak for my commissioner, but yeah.
Okay, because I recall from our October the 11th meeting that the concern was in particular with the residential development. Now, the parkway, from an overarching perspective, will help we are currently in conversations with developers in the area, and it will help from a commercial development standpoint, as well as from a tourism standpoint. Those are just preliminary conversations.
As a follow-up, what is the future land use vision along the alignment?
The future land use plan, actually the current land use right now is employment center and employment corridor. So we are, and as far as residential, with those employment centers and employment corridors, they would have to come in as a conditional rezoning if there is residential uses proposed. So there is some control there. Overarching goal here is this has been a planned economic development corridor for several decades, and Waxhaw wants to promote more of that commercial growth, more of that tourism and travel growth to help, number one, offset the tax base. Because right now, and this applies on Union County as well, is Waxhaw is seeing an 89% residential tax base. And that is not sustainable from a long-term perspective. So we are wanting to encourage more of that economic commercial growth, more of that travel and tourism growth over the residential. And we realize that there will be components of residential that comes along with it. From a tax-based perspective, though, right now, our current alignment with the tax base is not sustainable. And therefore, that's why we've zoned this area employment center, employment corridor.
Just another clarification question. So the entire corridor is zoned that, or is there certain areas like at major intersections or so forth?
Yeah, so Travis, could you help me out with the laser pointer here? That northeastern piece, all the way from 16 to 70 to Waxhaw Indian Trail, where our jurisdiction is employment center. And then if you come down just a little bit more, Travis, back to the yellow, just keep coming down to the southeast. There you go. That has already been a preliminary plat that has approved for the Yarborough development. And that is R3, R4 zoning in that particular area. So that is residential, and that preliminary plat has already been approved. And as a part of that process, we worked with the developer to ensure that right-of-way was included as a part of their design for this alignment.
So the future land use plan in that area is residential in nature?
No, so actually the area right there where it says Southeast Amendment 2, all of that area, let me just walk over here. I should have done that. All of this area here is employment center as well. South of that is currently zoned R1.
Follow-up question, how much is platted already then of those alignments? That the right-of-way is basically already there or preserved?
As far as, here, let me use the mouse this time.
Yeah, of these alignments, how much of the right-of-way is essentially already preserved through land development?
So through land development, we could preserve all of this right-of-way from 16 to Waxhaw Indian Trail.
Could or have? I mean, that's my question. How much has already kind of been platted or dedicated?
Yeah, so there's to the existing, where the existing road ends right now is right about there. And then we definitely could also preserve at least 120 feet of right-of-way from that endpoint to Waxhaw Indian Trail. And then we have reserved right-of-way for this southern piece as well.
So I guess from a technical perspective, although I still don't know how to, vote in adjoining jurisdiction, although I have multiple jurisdictions that can lead the way, that can vote the same. But that basically the southern part is what I'm hearing is the opposition for land development pressures, but at the same time, you just said the land development's already dedicated the right of way or set aside the right of way on
The
the southern
portion
part?
that's within Waxhaw, and we have Waxhaw, if you look at so that old map was actually outdated. This is the new map. So the green shows Waxhaw's jurisdiction. So everything south of 75 is 100% within Waxhaw's jurisdiction.
Question about land use in Union County, because parcels 1, 2, and 3 are not within your jurisdiction, correct? And
That's correct.
And then everything, the orange line, that goes through Mineral Springs, but you'd be shifting it out of Mineral Springs?
So that's a great question, Dina. And originally, when this first started, the short answer is yes, we did shift it out of Mineral Springs' jurisdiction. Parcels number 2 and 3 in purple were actually in unincorporated Union County. Now, as the process evolved, the jurisdiction of Mineral Springs annexed in those properties. And now 2 and 3 purple are within Mineral Springs' jurisdiction. 1 purple is in unincorporated Union County, and the rest is within Waxhaw's jurisdiction.
Let me go back to my original question is, what is the land use for both Mineral Springs and Union County in the missing, in the middle of this project?
At Waxhaw Indian Trail, parcel 1, probably single family residential, depending on whether those utilities or not, 1 to 2 units per acre. Between the railroad tracks to NC 75, that's an employment corridor. So not that every parcel would be appropriate for commercial or industrial, but if you could make it work, we would support industrial and commercial uses along that corridor.
And for Mineral Springs, it's single family residential. Those are large lots and in a subdivision that wants to remain large lot.
So it sounds like, from what I'm hearing from Bjorn and Vicky, Bjorn, you're okay with the commercial and industrial use is what it sounds like. And Vicky, you're more concerned about the conservation by design. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. Well, there are ways to overcome that. We first must move forward with this CTP amendment. Like, you can look at overlay districts and that sort of thing. There's also some other things that we could explore through future partnership, and we want to have a future partnership. You're our neighbors, and that makes sense to have a future partnership. And let's put this frustration aside and work towards a goal that works for all of us.
Having trouble understanding what the harm is in adjusting the alignment, and that's probably just my lack of experience and ignorance with CTPs. Especially if it sounds like when it gets into design, it's going to wiggle plus or minus a few hundred, maybe a few thousand feet, depending on if you find a bald sea turtle or something out there in the woods. So I mean, and I'm all joking aside, I don't mean to make light of it. I'm looking for a good reason to deny it, and I haven't necessarily heard one, especially if we're not trying to squash this.
Honestly, this started, the opposition, Mineral Springs was pretty consistent all along. The county was waiting on the elections a year ago from Waxhaw to see if their board composition would change and if their position would change. There were some changes, but the position remained the same. Our board then took it up in the spring, and by a 3-2 vote, they gave a position that I'm obligated to convey at this meeting, which is that they're concerned over the impact on the properties in the area, regardless of which alignment it is, and the impact of development south of 75, either in Waxhaw or further south in unincorporated Union County. And therefore, as designed with that, kind of arc from north and south to connecting to south of Waxhaw, that concept they don't support at this time.
And it seems like, so Bjorn, it seems like from what I'm hearing is that you're going to vote no on the amendment, and that's okay, because we understand your position. What I want to know from the rest of you is, are you against voting in support of the amendment of the proposed amendments.
Well, I respect, that's a fine answer, in my opinion. I mean, we're all at the charge of our politicians, our overlords. Where I do tap the brake, and this might be because I'm an engineer trying to fit in a planning world here.
It's
Maybe
painful.
the CTP is supposed to, maybe the CTP is supposed to be a future economic and development tool. I pump the brakes though on encouraging development, and that's where I do align with what Bjorn just said. I get major nervousness about encouraging what could be explosive growth. And maybe all of what I just said is inappropriate compared to where the CTP is supposed to go. I don't know. I'm just.
So that's a great question, Steve. This is really a long-term goal. We're not going to be out there with bulldozers tomorrow. So this is really the CTP. We understand it has been on the CTP for 30 years, and the MTP, TIP, that process is going to take another 20, 30 years as well. So we understand that this is more of a long-term goal for the town, and that development would definitely not come in all at once. It would be more so of over time, incremental change over time.
And Steve, I appreciate your comments and conversation. I think you probably reflected what many of us in the room are thinking and feeling right now. So don't at all apologize for that. Sometimes, you know, as James has said a couple of times in this discussion, it's hard to separate the issues. And so I'll just share with you a couple of things that sort of I think through as we approach this decision. We are being asked to take a vote, and we need to take a vote based on our discussion, based on all the information shared with us. We are a technical coordinating committee, and so as much as we can, we should focus on the technical merits of whether or not this amendment makes sense, and take that action, whether it passes or fails. I suspect Waxhaw will take this to our board, either with an affirmative vote from us on the technical merits of this or one in opposition. So I'm trying to keep, you know, in my mind, focused on how do I go about that? And then how do I advise my board member how I made this decision and how this discussion went about. So he's in a position to be informed on the technical merits of this, and then he can consider, you know, voting as a politician.
I appreciate that guidance because others have heard me complain we don't earn our T in the TCC too frequently, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So technically speaking, if there's been no right of way reserved, because I remember 5, 6, 7 years ago there was something, a bridge crossing over the river into Gaston County. It caused quite the uproar, and there had been right of way and development reserved, and that's pretty technically, this seems benign then in that category.
That's correct.
Can I have a follow-up question?
Yes.
Sure.
Sorry, I can't see you over there. I apologize. And I put you there. I'm so sorry.
So if we move this, you will be able to preserve right of way. I mean, it does happen with development. And so I guess we're making a decision where other jurisdictions, you're bringing an action where other jurisdictions are impacted. And I guess that's where I know we're talking about technical merit, but that's also part of when I inform my elected officials on what, when they ask me what my opinion is. I mean, that is part of this conversation. I know it seems like we don't want to talk about it. Or we don't think this is a forum for it perhaps, but to come to the TCC with an idea and not have your partner jurisdictions on board with that idea puts us in a very precarious situation. And I guess that's where my heartburn is. I'm a little confused by why we're doing it now. Like, it doesn't seem like there is a huge issue that we're fixing other than having a discussion about it. I'm having a lot of heartburn about the other jurisdictions not being comfortable with it and you all still moving forward with it. even though there's no, from my perspective, there's going to be a lot of wiggle room, like NCDOT says, shifting back and forth. So is this not an appropriate time to do this request? I guess is my
Yeah,
question.
so it sounds like you're uncomfortable with the other jurisdictions, in particular Mineral Springs and Union County not being in support.
Yeah, and why you all would still move forward with it, with this? And I guess that's my question.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So they did support the project back in 2022, and this is the alignment as a part of the feasibility report. And all of the jurisdictions, Union County, Mineral Springs, and Waxhaw agreed to this alignment at that time. So there has been a change in the jurisdictions of Mineral Springs and Union County. Waxhaw still supports this project from a technical perspective because it meets all of the merits. And we are planning for this vital infrastructure need that not only do we need now, because the problem is at 16 and 75, which we cannot solve at grade. That issue with the railroad tracks, there's too many conflicts from a right-of-way perspective with CSX, as well as from a historical property perspective. So we know that we cannot widen that intersection to accommodate for a dual left and dual receiving lane without those historical property impacts. And that goes completely against what Waxhaw supports, which is those historical properties and historical nature of our downtown. So the alternative has been over the past several years of this discussion is, well, if we can't go through, we must go around, right? So that's the whole point of a bypass. And if you remove that bypass, what other option do we have?
We're not doing that. We're not removing anything. A no vote it still remains, right?
A no vote
correct?
remains,
Okay.
and it's expected to have increased opposition and more costs from both that human, physical, and environmental perspective.
James, can you go back to your zoomed in map, please?
This one?
Do y'all have the ability to annex through development in parcels 1, 2, and 3?
No, because 2 and 3 are in Town of Mineral Springs' jurisdiction. Number 1, that could be annexed, but it's a voluntary annexation. So we have not been approached through that process. So 1, 2, and 3 are completely outside of our control. Everything else is within Waxhaw's jurisdiction.
Well, I think that's to Dana's point. The timing seems off. If this goes through the STIP process, which it looks like it is, and through that technical analysis later, it shifts. But the need to do it now when you're in disagreement with your partner jurisdictions is just troubling from a technical.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've taken multiple steps to have coordinated meetings. And, the bad news is that it's really taken us to this degree, this point in time at the TCC level to really bring Mineral Springs and Union County to the table. We reached out to them in February of this past year through a CARPO facilitated opportunity. And they did not want to, well, Mineral Springs wanted to meet, Union County did not want to meet. And the understanding was all 3 parties must agree in order to meet. And it's really taken this stage of commitment. And unfortunately, this is a tough decision that you're facing. I realize that. And this really is the most productive way that Waxhaw sees at this current point in time.
Quick question. James. Can you hear me? So, echoing Dana and Erica. So I understand that it's taking them some time to get here and that you have gone through the process and they were on board a few years ago. I guess I still don't hear you answer why we need to make this amendment now versus 18 months from now when, I don't know,
Sure.
there might be
That's
change in
a
Mineral
great
Springs and
question.
Monroe. They might get on board. I mean, not Monroe, Union County, and they might get on board. So why like today?
That's a great question. So we're looking at timing. We wanted to make this decision last month, and it sounds like your concern is why, or what is the reason why we should make a decision today? We're looking at the MTP timeline. MTP project submittal opens in January. We know that the TCC and CRTPO will likely not meet in December. So unfortunately, we're out of time to make a decision because we would like to make a decision that's based on the data and really put forth a great submittal for the MTP. And if we wait 18 months, well, essentially that 18 months is costing us another 4 to 5 years for the next MTP cycle.
All right, thanks for the discussion. Because I suspect this one may not be unanimous, we're gonna do a roll call vote on this item. And I'm gonna ask Travis just to go through prior to the vote and remind us what our voting options are. Sorry, I didn't give you enough time.
Sorry, my computer locked me out. So as a reminder, the motion that's on the table is to recommend that the CRTPO board approve the proposed comprehensive transportation plan amendments for the northeast and southeast quadrants of the Waxhaw Parkway. That motion was first from James, seconded by Andrew. So you have the options to vote yay or nay. Abstentions shall be considered as affirmative votes. Was it by approval, the voting membership of the TCC, a voting member may be allowed to withdraw from voting of an issue. In addition to that, Robert Rules of Order is still available if someone would like to make a motion. I know last month we talked about postponing definitely, that it was postponed for that meeting to take place. It could also be postponed indefinitely. I don't think any of the other Robert Rules of Order process would apply in this situation. So for a roll call vote, because I believe the action also was called for a division of the House, which means we keep track of who voted, even though we kind of already do that, but we're going to go through it for my ease. I would call out each municipality, ask for your vote, so that way I can make sure we get everyone tracked. Does anyone? Yep.
Just a technical question before.
Yep.
I vote. And maybe this is a question for Sean. Sean, you said that when you go through the actual design process, the line can wiggle. Is it common for it to wiggle so much that it's moving from the current alignment to the new alignment?
It is possible. I wanted, so the Wadesboro bypass, for example, right now is one we're working on through the environmental document. And that CTP alignment has it on the north side of Wadesboro. However, for that environmental document, we are looking at alignments that are on the south side of Wadesboro. And that is a vastly different alignment than what's in the CTP. So yes, there is nothing in the CTP that holds us to any alignment through the NEPA-SEPA process.
It just reserves the right of way.
No, not even, well, doesn't even reserve the right of way. I guess it could reserve the right of way through the municipality's development process. That's separate from DOT. The DOT can't reserve or hold right of way. Municipalities can. So yes, they could do that, I guess. But from our standpoint, it doesn't behold us to anything. We do look at that alignment. Obviously, if we wouldn't look at alignment that tied back into 75 another 2 miles to the east, because that's vastly different scope, right? Now you're bypassing significantly more than just Waxhaw. But yes, I mean, for it to wiggle in this case, a few thousand feet would not be unheard of or not be unreasonable.
All right, Travis, I'll let you get us started.
So with that, we're going to call the vote. I'm going to read your name off. Please just say yay or nay. CDOT.
Yay.
General Services. Charlotte Plain Design Development.
Yay.
Town of Davidson.
Yay.
Indian Trail.
Yay.
Iredell.
Yay.
Town of Matthews.
No.
Mecklenburg County Air Quality. NTC, Chief Transit Officer. I guess it would be Brian. You're MTC.
Can you come back to me after Pineville and Mint Hill?
Sure.
That feels like cheating.
I haven't divided votes so far.
Town of Mineral Springs.
Okay.
Town of Mint Hill. City of Monroe.
Yeah.
Mooresville. Division 10. Division 12.
Yay.
Integrated Mobility Division,
Same.
all right, TPD, Town of Pineville, Town of Stallings,
Yay.
City of Statesville,
Yay.
Town of Troutman,
Yay.
Union County,
No.
Town of Waxhaw,
Yay.
Village of Wesley Chapel, Focus Area Bicycle, Focus Area Health, Focus Area Pedestrian.
Yeah.
Did I miss anyone else who showed up, who's a voting member, who I did not? Oh, there we go. Okay. Yep. And finally, MTC.
Yay.
All right, with that vote, the motion passes and the recommendation passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving into our information reports, we're gonna hear from Bob, and he's gonna give us an update on CRTPO FY 2026 UPWP annual budget.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Microphone, Travis, and this is for to advance.
Yes, unless you'd like.
Maybe you can advance for me, if you don't mind. And so please go ahead and advance. So I'm here thank you. I'm here this morning to talk about the the fiscal year 26 UPWP, the Unified Planning Work Program. And as I think most of you know, this is our annual budget. So we normally would do this at our December meeting, but I think that it's likely that we're not going to be having a December meeting, hence having the discussion today. So first we'll talk about what the UPWP is, go over funding and the information we have at this point, talk about some of the tasks that we've identified thus far, some initiatives and issues that we expect for the next fiscal year, work to date, because some work has happened already, and the next steps in the process. So next. So it is our budget, as I mentioned just a moment ago, and its purpose is to ensure that we are implementing the 3C planning process. That's been a term that's been around in metropolitan planning process efforts for quite a few years now. That comprehensive, cooperating, and cooperative and continuing process. And so it identifies all the planning activities that we anticipate being necessary to carry out the metropolitan planning process throughout the year. And it serves as how we allocate all the federal, state, and local money to the projects and tasks and initiatives to help us accomplish our long-range and short-range planning goals. So in terms of its structure, there are 8 categories that it's divided up into, as you can see here on the screen. Data and planning support, and then the right-hand column gives you an idea as to what activities are carried out under those categories. A planning process that is a catch-all type category that encompasses the CTP, the MTP, et cetera. Any special studies that we might be taking on that they don't fit into any other category neatly, such as the strategic plan, transportation demand management efforts, et cetera. There's one for the UPWP. That's basically any time that we spend conducting presentations like this, developing the work program, and monitoring it during the actual fiscal year it's being implemented. The TIP process has its own category, of course. Then there's civil rights compliance and other regulatory requirements. Of course, we passed the Title VI plan last month, and so implementation of that and so forth. Also public participation. Statewide and extra regional planning. This is where we interact with our neighboring MPOs or with the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations, or NICAMPO. And lastly, management and operations. That's where just the fundamental activities are conducted that any organization needs to maintain operations. So in terms of funding, there are 3 primary funding sources that we use. The first 2 come from the FHWA. One is the Section 104F planning funds. That's kind of the core funding source for any metropolitan planning organization. And then we also take down some STB GDA money to help support our planning activities. The larger MPOs in the state all do this. And then there are funds from the FTA to help fund transit planning activities, Section 5303 funds. In terms of local match, The match for the PL and the DA funds are provided by all the member jurisdictions, except in those cases where a local planning project is undertaken for that community. And then that community is responsible for the match. And then the Section 5303 funds match is provided by the user. So CATS would provide it where CATS uses that money, ICATS where ICATS uses that money in Iredell County, and so forth. And then in that other category, there are times when there are activities that are underway usually by member jurisdictions that use federal transportation planning funds, and they have to be incorporated into our work program, even if we're not actively involved on a regular basis. But because they're federal transportation planning funds, we incorporate them or have to incorporate them into the UPWP. Now, this year or next year will be a little bit different. CRTPO, due to the great work of Will and Brian, brought in the RAISE and Safe Streets and Roads for All grants. So we'll be programming those as well naturally. They're unique, one-time sorts of things, although extend over a number of years. But they are kind of unique. They're not regular parts of the MPO planning process. They'll be included in the work program also. So in terms of what we know at this point, we know a little bit at this stage in terms of funding. With the 104 FPL funds, first, that amount is gained from, the total is gained from a formula that is used for distributing those funds throughout North Carolina, plus a redistribution of unused funds from previous fiscal years. And we do expect that final amount, hopefully by the end of the month. We'll get that information in. So we don't know what that will look like. It does fluctuate because of the redistribution. The formula amount alters a little bit from time to time. It has stayed roughly in the $900,000 range over the past quite a number of years now, I suppose. However, there is one additional MPO in North Carolina, and so that affects how much money all the MPOs get. The DA money, normally we draw down $1.1 million in DA money, but we also factor in the local planning projects. So that has to be that'll be a factor in this because it is federal money and they use DA money. These are the projects that are funded through the discretionary program, by the way. So we're looking at the possibility of about $1.17 million at this point, but that is subject to change depending upon whether or not some existing local planning projects have to be carried over into fiscal year 26. And then lastly, we do know the 5303 number. That number there is the one that's been confirmed by the Integrated Mobility Division. So that's the one solid piece of information we have right now. So just to emphasize that DA amount is subject to change, and hopefully we'll get more information soon about that in terms of our annual allocation that factors in that redistribution, and then we'll know more about local planning projects too. Getting into tasks, as I think most of you know, most of what we do is cyclical in nature. We do the TIP all the time. The MTP is on a 4-year cycle. The comprehensive transportation plan is a constant. And then there are other activities that we support, the Metroliner regional model that's so crucial to what we do as an organization. The UPWP development, it's a relatively minor expenditure, but it still is a cyclical process and it's development and maintenance really throughout the year, and public involvement, and then grants management related to the UPWP matter, of course. Next. We've identified some issues and some initiatives that we'll be taking on next year. Some of these can be multi-year events, but you can see them displayed up there. We're including grants management again here because it's as we get new grants in, like RAISE and SS4A, our grants management responsibilities become all the more complex. Complete Streets is a new addition to this list, but of course, items like the Metropolitan Transportation Plan and Connect Beyond have been around for a while, but they will be ongoing, of course. So these are what we've identified so far. It's not necessarily intended to be an exhaustive list. So what we've done so far is for the Section 5303 funds, We do have a call for projects out. The close for that call for projects is the 15th of this month. We've held pre-submittal meetings with the transit agency, so we're hopeful that we'll get everything in by the 15th. We've had discussions about major issues and initiatives with staff, and also our UPWP development partners, Federal Highway Administration, Integrated Mobility Division, Central Lina, CDOT, the model team, et cetera. That meeting was held on the 29th, and so we got a lot of good input from them at that meeting. And next. So in terms of our schedule, next month, we'll start the process to assign funding to the various tasks, those task codes that I identified earlier. In January, we'll come back to you with first drafts to you and the board. This will be just initial ideas as to where money will be allocated and how much to those task codes. And we will be submitting that draft to NCDOT by the end of the month. And throughout this process, we'll have transportation staff meeting discussions when needed. We've done that in the past, and I think they've been helpful for folks to be able to ask questions about how we're allocating dollars and so forth. In February, the second drafts will be presented to you and to the board. That is largely going to be the final numbers to be presented. And then in March, we will be asking you for a recommendation to the board to adopt the Unified Planning Work Program. And after that, we will submit it to NCDOT, and then it'll go into effect on July 1 next year. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Bob?
Good. All right. Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Bjorn, Union County CTP pedestrian map amendment.
Morning, everyone. This is information item. We'll go for action in January. This is the results of our comprehensive transportation plan sidewalk map amendment that went out for public comment in the summer. So, wait, what? There we go. You're driving it? Okay. Okay, so this was motivated by Union County updating its UDO. There's a lot of municipalities, a lot of back and forth between unincorporated and incorporated areas. And we had shifted to the CTP because it's more of a living document, as we just discussed. And so this was what we changed to in our UDO. And as we started applying it, we recognized pretty quickly, okay, we need to make some amendments to address some areas where we should be requiring, at the same time, some areas where it doesn't make sense to require them. And that was the motivation. So the ones that were added are up above. They're generally in the Waxhaw Marvin Wesley Chapel area. The ones that were deemed unnecessary are southwest of Monroe. So went out for public comment. This map shows the additions, which are green, the deletions, which are red. I thought there'd be a screen capture with the comments. So we received about 50 public comments. Triggered some concern along Waxhaw Marvin Road because Marvin earlier this year or last year had gone for a greenway bond that was kind of controversial, that included some segments along Waxhaw Marvin Road. And so residents commingled the two concepts. And so they opposed this as well, even though there actually already are CTP recommendations for multi-purpose paths along that section of road. We just wanted it to say sidewalk. And also a segment on the Mecklenburg Union County line that is a greenway recommendation. Mecklenburg County's already built a very fine segment of the 6 Mile Creek Greenway along Marvin or adjacent to Marvin Road, and this would continue it to the northeast towards Providence. And there were residents of a HOA who have a private greenway on their side, on the Union County side, thought that this was a proposal to also incorporate their greenway into the plans. That was correctly identified by the Village of Marvin as not a realistic proposal. So based on the feedback, both Marvin and Waxhaw and Union County supported these proposed amendments in their entirety. So what was proposed and what was ultimately recommended are one and the same. So that's what we have going on in terms of the outreach and the follow-up. Went to our land use board. They recommended it as well. I guess I got ahead of the comment period. So again, the deletions as proposed and the additions as proposed are for information. Happy to answer any questions that you may have. Otherwise, this will go to the same presentation to the board. And then in January, if everything's smooth, go on consent for approval. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. James coordinated on the Waxhaw side. Hunter Nestor from Marvin, who I don't think is here, coordinated on the Marvin side for outreach and endorsement. So I want to thank them for helping get this through the process.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Bjorn?
Question.
Go ahead.
Bjorn, could you go back to the one slide that shows the additions? Waxhaw definitely supports these additions. Those deletions, are those 100% within unincorporated Union County?
Yes.
Okay. Just clarifying, thank you.
Yes.
Are there alternative pedestrian facilities in that area? What's the rationale for the deletion?
I'm sorry?
What's the rationale for the deletion?
10 years ago, 12 years ago, when the CTP process was being conducted based on the expansion of the MPO and also just the regular CTP amendment process, that area was identified as suburban residential in the Union County's land use plan. We had plans for sewer in the area, so having sidewalks go in that area made sense. However, since then, the sewer plans have been pulled back and the land use plan has been pulled back. So now it's identified as rural residential. So in rural residential areas, we wouldn't recommend sidewalks.
Any more questions?
Is there like, is there an issue with having lines on the map that in terms of like the deletions, what's the harm in keeping the deletions on there versus designating them as?
Well, the motivation is that this is what we reference in our UDO for development standards. So when Mr. or Mrs. Developer submits a site plan and we look at this map, we say, okay, put sidewalks along the frontage of the property. In instances like this, we'd be putting sidewalks along frontages of property that in our eyes don't make sense. So we use this as a development tool.
How does this jog with the complete streets policy, the draft?
I don't know.
That might be a question for Alex. In their IND guidance on rural roads and shared shoulders or other treatments when you don't have sidewalks, what to do on rural roads?
So yeah, in regards to your question, Brian, the complete streets policy would be triggered with a planning effort and with planning work. So if it removed the lines from the CTP and there were no other plans demonstrating sidewalks along these corridors, if there were any DOT projects that were being done along there, and there were no supporting documents indicating some sort of multimodal facility, then that would not trigger the complete streets policy, if that makes sense.
So how do pedestrians and bicyclists in rural residential areas, what facilities are they using?
None.
None.
Because there aren't any. So, I mean, the only reason any would happen is as a result of the development process. And generally, it's just people stripping out their lots, putting up, cutting out one or two lots, which don't trigger requirements for sidewalk installation when they're just creating one or two lots. Only when a major development occurs that's building infrastructure would a sidewalk requirement or any other kind of requirement of that manner apply, at least for unincorporated Union County. So you see plenty of areas in the gray where there's no current recommendations for sidewalks. So this is just amending it to reflect the consistent land use planning that we have in those areas. Like east of Fairview and Unionville, towards what's showing up as New Salem, and there's no recommendations for those.
One more question, Bjorn. If a development were to come along that stretch, what would be your intent as far as sidewalk maintenance?
It would be the responsibility of the property owners.
I'd like to answer that too.
We've been through that.
Yeah, that's been an ongoing issue with all our towns in the past. Is we're talking about state roads, but state won't take over sidewalks or maintain sidewalks. And then you have Union County that basically doesn't take over sidewalks or maintain sidewalks. And so then it's up to the property owner to do it. So why are you gonna put lines on paper saying we're gonna put sidewalks in the future when property owner, each property owner is gonna have to maintain that sidewalk at this difference?
To follow up on that, the area of deletion is not within any ETJ.
No, that's why we cut it off there. You see those areas to the east that look like they're in unincorporated Union County. They're actually in Monroe's ETJ. And same with the area around Marshville to the east. It looks like a porcupine, and the reason why is because it's all ETJ as well.
Just the one. We're hosting another one of our quarterly webinars that's coming up. The date of that is on the 21st, a Thursday at 10 a.m. So I will ensure that Travis gets that information and is able to share that with you all if you're interested. Those are typically about an hour long, talking about the various things we're working on across the state, bike, ped, and public transportation. And that's it for me. Thank you.
So the fall call closed last Thursday, and I just wanted to give a quick summary of applications. We received 20, 3 planning studies. It might be reduced to 2. I'm still checking on that. 1 air quality project, 6 new applications for highway projects, 6 new for non-highway, 3 shortfall highway, and 1 small shortfall for non-highway. Next slide. So next week at the transportation staff meeting, we'll go into depth a little bit more on looking at jurisdictions, towns, the amounts requested. The applications total about 40 million. We have about 33 million to program. So hopefully there'll be lots of happy people. And then the Project Oversight Committee will meet early in December to talk about the scores and applications and make the recommendation to you all. You all will see the scores in your January packet and then be requested to make recommendations to the board in February. Any questions on that?
What was the amount requested?
It's about 40 million. We have about 33 million.
Thank you. All right, Curtis?
Hey, good morning. I was hoping to have a good project update for you this morning, but I think that's going to have to be a cliffhanger until the next time we're together. Might be January, but so hold on for that one. We are going to finalize our slate of recommended TCC focus area reps for 2025. So we'll do that this afternoon. Should have that for your action in January. That's all I got. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, Bob, you want to just make a quick announcement?
Where it's, although it's, I don't know, it feels a little funny. I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that Loretta Barron is going to be retiring at the end of the year. I don't know, maybe she's participating via Facebook, so hopefully she can hear this. But she's been with FHWA for 22 years, and then she had a number of years of experience with Winston-Salem MPO prior to that, and then she was a right-of-way agent for NCDOT prior to that. But she's, I think, been the only FHWA representative we've had in all the time I've been in the job. And so I've known Loretta actually since I started in North Carolina in 1997 when I was at the Gastonia MPO and she was at Winston-Salem. But we wanted to acknowledge her today, and hopefully she'll be at the board meeting and later on this month, just to thank her for all the work she's done for us and what a great partner she's been for this organization over the years. She has been fantastic to work with. I think some of you, CRTPO staff has worked with her a lot, of course, and DOT staff probably as well. And I think some of you with local projects probably have interacted with Loretta also, but she has always been wonderful to work with, great sense of humor, great attitude about her job, always helpful. If you needed some information out of her, she got it to you immediately. I know I'm going to miss her quite a bit. It's hard to see somebody leave after 22 years and take that institutional knowledge with you. But so Loretta, if you're listening somewhere, sounds like she might be dead. She's not. If you're up there somewhere, we are very, very grateful for all the hard work that you put into this job, and we're going to miss you. And I guess we're not having a December meeting, so we can't thank her then. So that's probably good news. This would have been her last. So, but just wanted nonetheless just to mention Loretta no longer going to be working with us anymore. So thanks for the time.
Thank you for that, Bob. And Neil?
This is tough to follow, but I do just want to provide a brief update on the memorandum of understanding for CRTPO. So the CRTPO board did approve the updated memorandum of understanding at the July meeting, and just want to thank everybody here that had a role in getting it on your local board agendas. So we, as of yesterday, we received the last signature from NCDOT, and I emailed it to Loretta. Loretta said, "You're good to go." So we have an updated MOU. So it doesn't really mean that much for the TCC because it's just a one vote per voting member, but it will be good to let your board members know that the new weighted voting provision will be in effect for the November 20th CRTPO board meeting. It's really not that significant of a change. Waxa goes from 1 to 2 votes. Huntersville, Mooresville go to 3 votes, as well as the 3 counties. Charlotte stays at the same. And then the cost share, that's changing to a pro rata share for the annual dues, but you all won't receive those bills until spring of next year. So just wanted to provide the TCC with an update on that. And thank you if you had a role in getting it on your local board agendas.
All right, with that, I'll pause a moment. Does anybody have any comments, remarks for the good of the group? If not, as always, thank you for your time and participation in the important work we do in transportation planning for the region. We have successfully completed all items on our agenda. We are adjourned.